All right. Well, without any further ado, I just want to welcome everyone and thank you all for joining us. This is our first Exito Plus Genentech Career Pathways panel discussion. My name is Shandee Dixon, and I'm the faculty lead for the Exito Plus program. And I also serve as the RLC coordinator and a career mentor for the BUILD program. But today I'd like to kind of start us off by telling you a little bit about the PLUS program and how it actually came to be. So first of all, BUILD EXITO stands for Building University Infrastructure Leading to Diversity. So that's BUILD. Enhancing cross-disciplinary infrastructure and training in Oregon, EXITO. Which also means success in Spanish. So our program is geared to build success of BIPOC and other historically marginalized undergraduate researchers through very intentional workshops, mentorship, hands-on research experiences, all in the health and biomedical sciences. I think we can all attest to the fact that COVID-19 has, really severely disrupted the educational experiences and career trajectories of BIPOC students, everyone in general at Portland State University. And this includes our scholars in the BUILD EXITO program. And really recognizing this need with, our dedication to continue to support our BUILD scholars past graduation, the pathways leading to uninterrupted success, or PLUS, was developed. And we're so grateful. This program was developed out of a partnership with the Genentech Foundation, really to provide continuity in the academic progress and research training of BIPOC scholars in the BUILD EXITO program, who have really faced challenges and disruptions to their education and future plans because of COVID-19. So the PLUS program has been supporting scholars since spring 2021 and will continue to support scholars through winter 2022. And so I just want to say that we are very thankful for this gift from the Genentech Foundation. And they've provided us with this ability to support our scholars. And we really look forward to continuing that partnership moving forward. I also want to, say that I'm very thankful for Cassandra Ramirez. She is our PLUS program director. So thank you, Cassandra, for all of the hard work that you do to make everything happen. And also to my co-lead, Celeste Janish. And so Celeste, I'm going to hand it off to you to go ahead and introduce yourself and our PLUS scholars as well.
Thanks, Shandee. Yes, so nice to meet you all. I'm Celeste. I'm a graduate research assistant with PLUS and also a master's in social work student here at Portland State. So I really just wanted to open it up for all of the scholars to introduce themselves really quick. And I think I can just kind of call you each out one by one, and then you can just tell us your name, maybe your RLC placement, just a little bit about yourself real quick here. So I'm just looking in the room. Tony, would you mind going first?
I'm Tony Brooks, and I'm placed in Dr. Eric Minkowski's lab. He does community psychology, looking into men and masculinities.
Thank you. Luce, do you want to go?
Yeah. My name is Luce. This is my last year here at PSU. I'm double majoring in applied health and fitness and public health. And I'm in Dr. Holly Henson's lab, and we study traumatic brain injuries.
Thank you. Amy?
Hello, my name is Amy. I have a bachelor's in science. I'm currently in Dr. Key Deliri's lab, and we're looking at neurolinguistics and how the brain reacts to or we're looking at brain waves in those with traumatic brain injury.
Thank you. Anna.
My name is Anna. I graduated from Portland State with a BS in speech and hearing sciences and psychology. I'm currently placed in Dr. Sunny Lin's public health lab, and we're currently looking at the U.S. Health Department's capabilities to send COVID-19 data electronically.
Awesome. Michael?
Oh, hey guys, my name is Michael. I graduated in Portland State University with a BS in Clinical Health Sciences. Currently, I'm under Dr. Martin Schreiber's Trauma Research Lab, and my project is on looking into oxygen therapy among critically injured trauma patients in the intensive care unit.
Thank you. And Ajesh?
Hey y'all, my name is Ajesh. I graduated last year from Portland State. I majored in public health. I'm currently placed in the Dr. Brooke Napier's lab, which is at the waterfront, and we're studying sepsis, particularly molecular functions of sepsis and immunology.
Well, thank you. Franklin?
Hello, my name is Franklin. I'm in a Bachelor of in Civil Engineering, and I'm in my upper division now. I was placed in the Healthy Buildings Research Lab with Dr. Aoyat, and I've been working with him for almost 3 years now. And we are currently working on exploring how to use low-cost sensor data from Purple Air Network to inform exposure and health consequences from wildfire air quality events. So, yeah.
Awesome. Ariane?
Hey, my name's Ariane. I graduated with a BS in public health, and I currently work at OHSU as a research coordinator in trauma surgery intensive care. And my RLC placement is in a different lab at OHSU with Dr. Shannon, and we're looking at community health, and I'm currently working on a project for pre and postnatal care for pregnant women.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I think that's everyone that was able to speak. We have several more that a couple people had to keep their mics off. But if I missed anyone, because I was just scanning the room, feel free to jump in now.
Awesome. Well, thank you to all the Plus Scholars. We're so happy that you're here, and it's just great to hear about all the work that you're doing. So thank you so much for taking the time to introduce yourselves. I would now like to introduce all of our amazing panelists, and we're going to do this a little bit differently. So we have 3 panelists with very diverse backgrounds joining us from Genentech today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to allow each of them to introduce themselves and share their journey lines. So this is a beautiful way to share your stories.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sara Tadesse-Bell. I am currently a scientist at Genentech, a principal scientist at Genentech. I'm going to share a quick overview of how I got here. So similar to all of you, I was interested in the science and engineering track. Went to Seattle University, so not that far away from where you guys are currently in Oregon. Majored in biochemistry. And at the time, I was interested in pursuing a career as a physician. And during that time, I was really trying to discern whether or not I was going to continue on the route to medical school or, look at something else in industry. And so I actually was a part of the National Society of Black Engineers chapter in the greater Seattle area and attended a conference, the NSBE conference, where Genentech happened to be. And that was the start of my career at Genentech. So I interviewed with Genentech and a few other pharma companies that were there, not knowing that this was going to be my career. But I took the opportunity to join Genentech as a rotational analyst in their operations rotational development program. So they have a few different programs, and I'm happy to talk about that later for recent graduates, for those of you who might be interested. But for those 2 years, I rotated into 4 different parts of the manufacturing and engineering organization. And after I finished the rotation program, I took a permanent role because I realized I wanted to get more hands-on bench experience. So I joined our protein analytical chemistry group as a research associate, doing process validation and process characterization work. At the same time, also pursuing a graduate school. Started at Stanford and doing a management science engineering master's program. But I realized that my calling was actually wanting to be closer to the patient, and switched midway and decided to go pursue my master's in public health at UC Berkeley. So a lot of you public health folks out here, it's a really great master's program if you're considering going and getting your MPH. Very glad that I did. It opened up my eyes to so much that we could do, not just from in general public health, but just as an industry in pharma as a whole, which I can speak to later. So while doing my MPH, I realized I wanted to get closer to work that touches on public health related work at Genentech. And so I switched and applied to a different role within the organization. So I went from the manufacturing side and switched into our early research and development organization in safety assessment as a research associate working on toxicology and pathology studies. So early phase 1 animal studies. We don't actually do the animal studies at site. So I was really just mostly analyzing the data and seeing, how our new molecules are actually made, and what is the NOEL, and figuring out what's the appropriate dose for things that we were looking into. And when I finished my MPH, that was when I was at a discernment point within my career, trying to figure out, do I stay or do I continue my career at Genentech? And I wasn't really sure, what else an MPH could do. And turns out there were actually a lot of opportunities for people who have a public health background at Genentech. And I interviewed in our commercial organizations, so our sales and access, so health economics, market access organization. So I applied for a role there, which I was offered, in addition to our product development organization, which mostly centers around clinical trials. So there was an opportunity to also go that route, which I was offered a position. And then also within product development, our epidemiology function, our raw data group is what we would call them. So in the end, I decided to pursue the product development track or organization and decide to take the role as a patient-centered outcomes research scientist in product development, which is where I currently am now as a principal scientist. And so that is my journey. A little bit about me. I obviously like to learn. I just recently decided to go back to school last year because we were in the pandemic and we weren't going anywhere. So I pursued a health economics and outcomes research certificate at the University of Washington. And I'm still thinking about actually going back to school and going and getting my DRPH. So, it's going to be a continuous journey for me. I'm also a bookworm. I'm married. I'm a mom, and I actually have one on the way. I'm a dog mom as well. Love to travel, hate to fly. Have a very deep passion for health equity and social justice and inclusion. And that's pretty much it about me. So I'll pass it on to the next panelist.
Sandra.
Hi, everybody. My name is Sandra Medrano. I'm a program manager at Genentech, and I actually don't have a STEM or science background at all. So a little bit about my journey. I actually like to start with my junior year in high school. In 2010, I was able to attend a summer institute boot camp of sorts that was really focused on prepping students from underrepresented communities to really be ready to apply to college. And I really was super fortunate to be a part of the 6th cohort of that initiative, which is still ongoing. It's called LEADA, Leadership Enterprise for a Diverse America. And I got to spend 9 weeks at Princeton, just really in deep college prep work, which was super revolutionary to me because my plan A, coming from a really small rural town in Washington State, was to go to community college. I had no idea university life, much less Ivy League or universities outside of Washington State could be in my potential reach. And so it was really a pivotal moment where I was like, wow, there's just so much out there that I can have access to. And so through that experience and with their support, I got through my senior year of high school and was super fortunate to get a lot of scholarship support and financial aid to really be able to pursue a degree at Yale, which was not necessarily my top choice, and not to sound snooty about that, but I just had no idea what I was even signing up for. I was just kind of okay, let's try this. And it was a huge step moving cross country by myself It was the second time I ever boarded a plane. And so I think it was just like a huge moment for me to really be able to kind of explore what I could really be when I wanted to, and what I wanted to study. And at Yale, there's, it's a very liberal arts kind of environment. And so I got a chance to explore and experience a bit of everything from humanities to, you know, a little bit of science, a little bit of math. Wasn't so great at it, learned that I didn't get super excited by it. So I really doubled into the social sciences and took a lot of anthropology, Latin American history and revolution courses, ethnicity, race, and migration, and really just got to explore a lot of areas and fields of study that I had no idea about and that were really just interesting to me. So I was really fortunate to do a lot of that. And at the same time, also get a little bit of deeper expertise in some areas. So I was part of our inaugural class of energy scholar students. I was really interested in the environment and environmental sustainability and all of that good work. So was really able to do some quant and science as part of that certificate, but really did double down on history and the social sciences. I also got to study French, which is really fun and kind of a new language that I hadn't explored before. As part of like my work experiences, I really spent 2 summers during kind of my undergraduate degree doing internships in a variety of different places and a variety of different roles. I was a part of a microfinance organization that was supporting small businesses in New Haven, where Yale is based. And I was a consultant there. I worked for a startup in food systems, and I was a bit of a financial analyst for them. I worked at the city of New Haven as a sustainability planner, helping them update their sustainability plan for the entire city. And then I also got a chance to travel abroad and spend a summer in Paris learning French and a little bit more about the culture in a much more immersive experience than sitting in my desk and reading out of a book. Which was really cool because I'd never, again, experienced a lot of these things. I didn't know what a consultant was. I didn't know what a financial analyst was until I had these opportunities to really just learn and experience what they actually look like. So I graduated in 2015, ultimately with a bachelor's in history. And again, that concentration in environmental energy studies. I really thought I was going to go down that route in terms of my first career, my first job opportunity. But I just serendipitously stumbled across this organization called FSG, which is a social mission-driven consulting firm. I didn't really want to go the consulting path, didn't really know what consulting was, but I was really excited about the idea of creating social impact and working in the social sector. And not necessarily being in direct service, but being in a space across the ecosystem where I got to work with other organizations, really influence people with power and money and resources to funnel them into issues that I was really passionate about personally, but also that were like high social needs. And so I spent actually most of my professional career at FSG. I started as an entry-level associate consultant and then kind of just worked my way across to being a project manager and team leader. And throughout those 5+ years I was at FSG, I actually had the opportunity to work as a consultant to a variety of different companies. So I worked with Walmart, Genentech even. I worked with a couple of companies in Latin America and a few like financial institutions. So really got to learn a lot about different industries and how businesses really can help solve societal issues. And that's really what brought me to Genentech. Today, what I'm doing is I'm a program manager for our signature initiative, Kindergarten to Careers, which is really our enterprise-wide commitment and strategy to supporting workforce diversity and to really supporting the education and workforce system so that more Black and Brown students can be scientists, can be a part of Genentech, can be part of the medical and health services workforce, really in order to be able to most effectively serve patients and patient needs. And so a lot of the work, while I wasn't necessarily coming in with a health or STEM background, really was that really wasn't like a negative on my end, because I brought a lot of skills in kind of strategic planning, project management, and some of those more qualitative and kind of interpersonal skills that come with project management, which is a lot of the work that I do today. So that's a little bit about my career path. More about myself. I'm also a first gen, first person in my family to go to college. My parents were Mexican immigrants. They came to the US in the 80s, and I was their first child born in America or in the US. I love learning. I think being a history nerd really makes me think about the past a lot and kind of understanding the future. And so I like to think about that stuff. I love plants. I have like 20 plants, and I also love cats, and I have 2 cats. And I live in Seattle, which makes me, I think, really keen on getting sun whenever I can. So I love beaches and traveling to warm places. And given COVID and just being at home all the time, I really kind of dipped into my kind of interest in cooking and baking and exploring restaurants here locally. But that's a little bit about me. So I'll pass it on to next panelist.
Carolina.
That's me. Hi, everyone. My name is Carolina Guillen. I think I'm one of the most recent graduates from this panel. Should have probably started in my high school journey, where I kind of always knew I wanted to go into engineering, mainly because when I first moved to the US, I moved here when I was like 12. So to me, math was my favorite class because it was something that I could understand without knowing English. So I've always, it's been my favorite subject. So I always kind of knew I wanted to do engineering, but I just didn't know what kind. And if I'm being honest, when I chose my degree, which is bioengineering at OSU, Oregon State University, I thought it was a different degree. I thought it was my degree is bioengineering, but it stands for biological engineering, but I thought it was biomedical engineering. And, if you're studying engineering, you know that the first 2 years you take all the math, physics, and nothing really that related to your career. So there I was thinking I was in biomedical engineering kind of thing. And then turns out, because at my school, I don't know if any of you all have friends that go to OSU, but we actually have a biological engineering degree. And then there's bioengineering, which is in the CBE college, which is chemical, biological, and environmental engineering. So I was always it's biomedical engineering, because the other one's for biological engineers. And so anyway, I always knew I wanted to work doing something related in the medical field, but in the engineering sector, if that makes sense. So I guess my journey really started in 2016 when I got to do undergraduate research as a freshman in Dr. Skip's lab with mainly herniated spinal discs. And so that was something that I was very excited about and I really enjoyed. But I knew I wanted to do something more that can impact someone's life sooner, because my research project, we weren't even close to testing on animals yet. Research is, as many of you guys know, because you guys are all doing research, takes a while, it can take a little bit. And so then I saw this opportunity. I should mention that I joined SHEP, Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers. I know PSU also has a chapter. And so throughout their newsletters, they send opportunities, and I saw this opportunity to apply to an internship in Cleveland State University, and it was in rehabilitation engineering. And all that I read about it was oh my gosh, this is what I want to do. And you're kind of a freshman, and you read all those requirements and you're I don't even have that many years of experience and I haven't taken those classes, but you guys should all apply and take a shot because you have nothing to lose. So that's kind of what I did. And I actually ended up getting that internship, which I was wow, who's gonna take a sophomore, but they did. And that was what really changed my perspective on what I wanted to do. I actually almost switched my major to mechanical engineering just because I really enjoyed it. I got to work with a patient that has tetraplegia, which means that they have no movement from their neck down. And I really like making specific things just for her to use and seeing that immediate effect on them, making something and then seeing someone use it right away, something that I really enjoyed. And I knew it's something that I wanted to do. I wanted to do something that could impact someone's life sooner than my research would with herniated spinal disc. And so that was a lot of fun. I got exposed to a lot of like new like technologies that I wasn't familiar with through my research or like my university, like FES systems, like functional electrical stimulation systems, which actually gets implanted through like the muscles, and got to work with the robot hand, and I got to code before even taking my coding classes at OSU. So it was like a lot of like new experiences and learning about new technologies in like one summer. It was very awesome summer. So from there, I kind of knew that like I wanted to do something that was more impactful to patients like right away. So then I kind of shared so I guess it's important to have mentors. Like I was still in contact. I was still doing research during the school year with my research professor from my first year through her herniated spinal disc. But I would email him while I was on my internship. And I was like, hey, guess what we did today? Because we kind of have a close relationship. And I've always been a firm believer that you should obviously like share kind of what your goals are, what your passions are, things that you want to try with those that you think could help you. Like, for example, your mentors is a great person to share those goals and dreams of yours, because they have the possibility to help you, right? So I kind of told him kind of what I was doing. Like I would send him an email every like 2 weeks or so. And when I got back, he was like, hey, I want to talk to you. And he actually got me a grant to work on like a hands-on project through actually one of her classmates. She also has one of those big wheelchairs that she controls with her head, so they're bulky, and we're in Oregon, so it rains a lot, and her like chair would constantly break down just because of the rain. And she would call and she's like, hey, I'm stuck in the middle of the road, can you push me out? So he actually got the grant to kind of help her stay dry, but also try to keep all like her equipment dry on her wheelchair. So it kind of sounds easier. Like when I first got this project, I was like, oh, how hard is it to build a wheelchair umbrella for this wheelchair, But there's a lot of things that go into it, considering the fact that she likes to speed through her wheelchair. So that was another one. And then like the degree of mobility that she has, because she doesn't have the same mobility that we do. And it was also cool that it was like one of my lower classmates that I got to do this for. So that was a lot of fun. And then I also got involved with someone with mechanical engineering. So it was like our degrees working together to make this wheelchair umbrella happen. And it was a really fun project. And from there, that summer, I saw an opportunity to work at Genentech as a validation engineer, which is where my Genentech path started. So not that long ago, the summer of 2019. If I'm being completely honest, again, I didn't really know what validation engineers do. I literally Googled it and I was like, oh, this sounds fun. And then I decided to apply. I like to try new things because you never know what you're going to like or you're not going to like. So I applied and then I got the internship and I really enjoyed it. It's funny because I didn't really know what validation engineers do, but like once I actually got the experience to like actually be a validation engineer for the summer and having like the same responsibilities, but like getting to shadow my like coworkers, I have all this experience and everyone was so inclusive, and it was not like, I don't know, it was like, I really enjoyed like working with all the different teams and like getting to do hands-on things. I really enjoyed that. And like everyone's like super motivated at Genentech, like every vial is a patient, and it's a very good atmosphere to work in. So I really enjoyed it. And that summer I had a year left to graduate. So I continued back to school. And then before school ended, right before COVID, I started working as a contractor at Genentech as a validation engineer. And then once I graduated, I continued working full-time as a contractor. And then recently we have like our badges, and for contractors is green, like a green badge with your picture. And then for like Genentech employees, it's a blue badge with like your picture. So recently, actually this year, I became a blue badge employee, which just means that you're actually working through the company instead of as a contractor. So if you have any questions about that, like I have experience in like their internship, contractor, and like actual full-time positions. So I could also talk about that. So that's what I'm currently doing, working as a validation engineer. It's a lot of fun. I really like that you get to collaborate with all kinds of people, like coworkers, different teams. There's always something new that you're gonna learn. I really enjoy that. No day is the same. Like you don't really know what you're gonna do the next day. Well, you kind of do, but like you don't know what's gonna happen. So Hope that makes sense. But I did want to share that some of my on-campus jobs that I think really helped me kind of like figure out what I wanted to do. For example, undergraduate research, if you're curious about other majors that you've always wanted to explore, like I think that's a great way to do it through research, because you get paid to try something new and you're not like committing to like for example, if you were to change your major completely, like it's a good way to explore other areas. I was also a STEM leaders mentor because I think I really enjoy mentoring students, just because when I first moved to the US, I think I had like a lot of really good mentors and I really felt supported because I'm an only child. So I had no idea what I was doing. Like I didn't know about FAFSA, like my parents didn't know about the whole process. So I really enjoy mentoring just because it's a way to support one another, and then you always learn something new from others. So that's something that I recommend. If you can be a mentor to someone, like definitely do it. It's a great feeling and you always learn something new from others as well. So I was also an engineering camp mentor. As you can tell, like just a lot of like mentoring experiences. And I was also an undergraduate research ambassador, which I helped students find things to like research for them to like try different areas or what they want to explore, or start getting some experience so it's easier for them to get a job once they graduate. So there's that. And then a little bit about me. I love to travel. Like I love to travel and try new things. My favorite color is purple. So I was glad the slides were all like this color scheme. I'm always down for birria tacos. I don't know if you guys know what birria is, but like dipping the taco in the consomme. I'm always down for that. I really enjoy dancing, salsa, and like playing basketball. And I really tend to pet like every dog that I see, like actually, like it's not even a joke. I'm a dog mom to a GSP, German short hair pointer. His name is Bono and he's very high energy. He keeps me fit during these COVID times. And then I recently also got into hiking just because I got Bono and I need a way to tire him out. It's been fun for both of us. And I have a deep passion for diversity and inclusion. So yeah, birria tacos. So that's a little about me. I'll let Shandee get the mic now.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you, Sara, Sandra, and Carolina. Thank you for your introductions. I'm super inspired now and thinking about my career path from everything you all talked about. So we're gonna kind of switch gears now, and we have some questions that our PLUS scholars have put together, and we've added a few to that mix as well. So I'm gonna be asking some questions of our panelists, and I'm really excited. I know we're gonna have a lot of fun. So I'm gonna be starting off. The first question that I have is, what interested you about Genentech and how did you get your start at Genentech? And this first question is for Carolina.
So kind of like I said about Genentech, what like really inspired me was the fact that you get to make a direct difference on the patients. So everything that you do is directly correlated to like helping patients. Like, and right now through COVID times, like we've been able to make a big difference, and that's very impactful. That keeps me motivated, and it's not hard to stay after hours on site to help make those things happen. And so I guess how I got started at Genentech was through my internship in the summer of 2019, without even knowing what validations engineers do. And so I think it's a good way to like just try new things and be involved with like whatever you're passionate about. Just give it your all and you'll make a difference either way.
Yeah, awesome. Would either of the other two panelists like to take that question as well? I'll keep moving on. Oh, go ahead, Sandra. Yeah.
I can add, yeah. So in my previous job, I was a consultant. So I got to, I guess, advise a lot of companies, but not actually on like things they could do, but not actually do the thing itself. And so at some point I was like, wow, I really would like to try doing something that I tell other people to do. Like, what does that look like? What can I do there? And I had a project with Genentech a couple of years ago, and I just really loved the culture. I love the people. I love the problems and the questions they were asking. So when this opportunity came up, I was like, oh my gosh, I get to do something that I've been curious about doing and like figuring out how to make it happen. And then also at a company that like, you know, everybody sings its praises in terms of the people and the culture and stuff. So I think I really like serendipitously again, just ended up being able to do something that kind of brought a lot of the things I was interested together.
So I'm kind of following with that. This next question is also for you, Sandra. How do you feel that your job that you're doing now in Genentech supports the bigger mission of Genentech?
Yeah, so I'm not, like I was saying, not a scientist, not an engineer, so I don't get to do the cool things Carolina gets to do. But I do feel that a lot of the work that I'm doing today really does contribute to, Genentech's overall mission around how we operate internally. So I'm in a support function. So my job is really to help other organizations within Genentech, business units, really be able to do their work more effectively, really be able to tackle critical business questions. And in the particular area that I work in around workforce diversity, like we all know that we need to be better about diversity and inclusion and equity. And that's a huge personal passion of mine, just broadly, but also where I had an opportunity to develop some expertise around like, what are those practices that as a business we can implement and do differently internally in terms of the way that we operate, the way that we hire people, the way that we develop people to make sure that equity was front and center. So I feel like a lot of my work is really contributing to those really important business critical issues. And then also to help shape how Genentech shows up in society and how we impact society. So like I was saying, like how we build partnerships, like how do we get more brown and black scientists in these jobs and these opportunities? How do we support the healthcare system, right, that works closely with our patients? Those kinds of questions are the kinds of questions that I'm thinking about as I do my work that, you know, it isn't in a lab, but it is trying to influence people within the organization who have those resources and have decision-making power to make some of those changes. And ultimately change really the company, but also impact society. So that's how I see a lot of my work tying into Genentech's broader mission.
Yeah, that's amazing. And this next question kind of follows, you may have touched on this a little, and I'm going to open this up to all the panelists, but can you tell us what your typical day looks like when you start your day to when you end your day? What is that like for you?
Sure, I'll go.
You want to start, Sarah, so you can?
Yeah, I guess I can go. So I work in product development. So I sit up in the part of the function or part of the organization where we're actually running the clinical trials. So the way that my day works starts very early. So product development sits within, so there's Genentech, and then there's a broader, larger organization called Roche, which we are a part of. And so it's global. So my day starts early because product development is part of the global team. So I interface a lot with colleagues in London, in Basel, Switzerland, in Toronto, in Canada, because our team is made up of so many different parts of the drug development process. So I'm a patient-centered outcomes research scientist, so I do qualitative, quantitative research. So it's a little bit of epidemiology mixed with biostats, mixed with survey methods and designs and psychometrics. But I work very closely with clinicians, our clinical science teams who work on the hard clinical endpoints and designing the clinical trials. So we work very closely together. So my counterpart may be in London, they may be in South San Francisco, or they may be in Basel. And because of that, our hours start really early. So sometimes my meetings start as early as 6 a.m. in the morning, PST, which means I'm up at 5, which means I'm doing everything in terms of getting everything ready for the day. So from like 6 a.m. till almost, I would say 11:30 is just straight meetings, because those are considered golden hours where everybody's kind of on the same time zone where we can actually work and collaborate together, especially in the times of COVID. We're all just trying to make it work with the time constraints that we have. And so from during those times, I'm usually in lots of meetings or meetings on our clinical teams, our study management teams, checking to see how the clinical trials are going, trying to put out any fires that are happening, trying to address any regulatory or FDA questions that we're getting, analyzing data. Maybe there's a data readout coming up soon and we're trying to prep for that. What are the analysis outputs that we need to look at? what is our, you know, position on what the different outcomes could be and how would we frame that. And, you know, those are the types of discussions that we have at that point. And hopefully things go well and it's a positive result and we can bring this medicine to patients. And then the afternoons is just really trying to catch up on all the emails that filled my inbox during those 6 a.m. to, you know, 11 a.m. meeting times and trying to address all those. Hopefully trying to find time to eat in between that time, but that's usually how my day works right now in the COVID era. Pre-COVID though, you know, a lot of these meetings would still happen early, but we would actually be, for those of us that are co-located in the same place, we'd all be able to meet, but we'd be interfacing similar to this in a Zoom with the other colleagues that are sitting all in another conference room across the pond in London or in Basel or someplace else. But we do make an effort to try and meet when a study team or a program or a new molecule team is set up for a clinical trial. We'll have a kickoff where we'll all meet somewhere where we can all be co-located together to get to know each other and establish that team. And then kick off the work from there.
I hear you with that, looking for time to eat pre and post-COVID era. I'm with you there. Yeah, how about either of the other two panelists? What does your typical day look like?
Yeah, so I think similarly, I think a lot of my day is really revolving around meetings and kind of project management right now, especially because the initiative that I'm leading is a bit new to Genentech. So we're in a bit of like startup and build up mode. So a lot of the time I'm in meetings, learning from folks across the company who sit in other departments or functions from mine and understanding what they're doing. That kind of aligns to the work that I'm leading, kind of learning about their pain points and understanding some of their needs. Connecting the dots. So like having a meeting here and connecting to meeting over here, and then making sure that those people like link up to this third person that I just ended up talking to for whatever reason. A lot of my day kind of revolves around that. Again, really talking to stakeholders and just listening and learning as we're building the initiative. We want to make sure we're really inclusive of the entire enterprise. So like really spending time with folks and trying to understand what some of those needs are. It's a huge organization, Genentech, and so there's a lot of different contexts and unique kind of needs across different functions and different teams. I do a lot of like work stream tracking. So I work with folks who are capturing data and collecting it and trying to like put it in a dashboard so that it's centralized and we know where it's coming from and kind of making sure it's getting to the right audiences. I also kind of work with our consultant teams to make sure that like we're getting the support and like tackling some of the questions that our immediate team or I myself can't address, but really getting their support. So managing kind of contracts and that sort of relationship management work. But really just a lot of meetings, a lot of calls to learn and connect dots, a lot of things like that, just like keeping track of a lot of moving pieces.
Yeah. Sounds like a lot of moving things and a lot of stuff going on all at the same time. This next question is for Sara. How much autonomy do you actually have in the work that you do? Can you talk about that? Do you work alone or in a group, or what's that like for you?
So currently I work, well, it's a little bit of both. And I think regardless of where you are at Genentech, I think it's a little bit both either way. You have to have some self of autonomy to be able to make decisions and be able to do your work and be a self-starter and get what you need to get done as part of your deliverable as your role. So when I was in the lab earlier on, I was pretty autonomous. Like, you know, I ran assays in the lab. So I would come in, look and see how many samples I had for that day, plan it out accordingly, set everything up, run the tests and analyze the data and send it back. So that was just pretty much just myself for the most part. When I started going into different parts of the organization, when I was in GRED and toxicology safety assessment, most of the work was by myself, just, you know, analyzing the data, but I worked very closely with the head toxicologist when they were getting their data in and they were asking me to basically analyze the data, do visualizations, and explain what it actually means as part of their preparation for whatever meetings that they had. So that was more collaborative. And then currently, as I alluded to earlier, it's all about teamwork and working with so many different people, because it takes a lot to develop a drug. It takes a lot to run a clinical trial. So there are pieces that you own individually, but it adds up to the larger puzzle of what we're doing and trying to get this drug to our patients, or this medicine to our patients. So, you know, I own a specific piece of it that I work on my own, but even though I come up with a strategy or come up with a study design for this endpoint that we're trying to measure within the trial, that still feeds into the larger design of the clinical trial, where the clinical scientist has specific things that they need to see, statisticians need some specific information. So we're all working very closely together, because it all, you know, comes together at the end to tell the story about this medicine and how it works and why it's beneficial to patients. So it's a little bit of both.
Yeah, that's nice to be able to kind of have work kind of play out in different ways. So you get to kind of, you know, do what you like and work with people, but also have that time on your own as well. This next question is going to be for both Sandra and Sara. And this is kind of an interesting one. Can you live and work anywhere, or can your job be done only in certain places? So Sandra, I'll let you start us off with that one.
Yeah, so I actually live in Seattle, so my job is definitely doable remote. I think especially right now with COVID and many of us still like being remote in a lot of ways, jobs like mine that are like pretty project management oriented can be done from a desk at home. So I'm super fortunate to be able to have that flexibility. I think the only real conditions are like just being available when, like, you know, folks that you need to work with are available. Like Sara was saying, like those golden hours, like I don't have as strict golden hours, but like just making sure that I can connect with the folks that I need to connect with who are in different time zones is really the biggest constraint. And then not working internationally, which, you know, I have roots in Seattle and I hope to stay in Seattle, so it doesn't really apply to me. But otherwise, yeah, my work is pretty flexible. I work at coffee shops, I work at home. You know, at some point when COVID is less intense, would love to like have a little like WeWork or something where I can drop in and have like a bit of an actual office feeling, or even go on campus to South San Francisco. But you know, for now and for the foreseeable future, my work is totally doable remote.
That's awesome.
So Sandra, something to know, I actually live in Seattle right now currently. So we should meet up and do like a working day. So yes, you can be remote, but it totally depends on where you are in the organization. So if you are bench side or work in a lab or work in manufacturing, like, you know, Carolina in Hillsborough, you will physically have to be there, because there's a certain work that you just need to be on campus to do. Like I can't take, you know, a bioreactor with me to my house. Cool, but you know, there's certain rules, regulations we have to follow. So it's probably better just to be where you are for that. But you know, in other parts of the organization, like Sandra said, you can. So for example, in product development, it's global, which means as long as you have access to internet, for the most part, you could probably work wherever. So I was in South San Francisco. We moved in the middle of the pandemic because my husband actually ended up getting a job in Seattle. So it worked out for me and us, so we could be closer to family. So, you know, I was able to make that arrangement. And, you know, the only commitment that I have is obviously the golden hours, in addition to being able to fly back and forth to campus when really important on-site meetings when everyone's flying in are happening, and or if I need to travel to Basel or, you know, to Switzerland or to London or Canada for any important meetings, I just have to make sure that I make myself available for that. But because of obviously the pandemic, I do think that is something that is more open for discussion and negotiation when you start looking for positions in an organization like Genentech or other companies similar in size, because I do think, you know, through the pandemic, we can show that you can still do your work regardless of where you are, if you're not on the lab side of things.
Awesome. That sounds really exciting to be able to travel like that. So this next question is kind of going back to what you all talked about in your journey lines, but I wanted to touch on it a little bit more. And so this one's going to be for Sara and Carolina. What inspired you to follow the path that you're on? And did you know that you were going to be doing this job when you were younger at all? So whoever wants to take that one first.
I guess I can go. No, the answer is no. I had no idea when I was little that I wanted to do this. I thought I wanted to be a spy, so I know. Very different. But I guess another thing that I didn't quite mention earlier was another big reason why I decided to stay at Genentech after I graduated was the support from all my coworkers and my manager. And I was very involved in SHEP as an undergrad, the Society of Hispanic Professionals Engineers, and I love that, like, giving back to the community aspect as well, balance with like my engineering work. It's a good balance for me. I really enjoy it. And being part of Genentech at HTO, the Hillsborough site where I work, it's way smaller than the South San Francisco site. So we do have a few like diversity teams. One of them is Team Medley, which I'm a part of, and then GWP, Genentech Women Professionals, and we have one for the vets as well. And so being able to be part of those groups and still be able to reach out and like, for example, be part of these panels, help others, motivate others, was also a really important aspect for me, like the company culture as well. I really enjoy that, like we have like a whole week where we give back and volunteer. Like we literally like get paid to volunteer or like help organizations, or like if we make a donation, it gets matched. Like there's a lot of things that I really enjoy about that aspect as well. And like, I really also enjoy the hands-on work, and that not every day is the same. Like for me, like that question on like what your daily schedule kind of looks like, I couldn't really tell you. Like there's some days that I just write a protocol all day, or there's days where I'm out on the floor trying to figure out like why the line stopped, or like why the vials keep breaking, or like, you know, so it's always different, and I enjoy that challenge. I don't know, it makes time fly by. And getting new products and like learning about them and like the new challenges that each product makes, but you know that like they have such a good impact on the patients. I don't know, like just that mix, it's like kind of thrilling, or like I like the challenge, but at the same time, I like the space where I work, where my coworkers are always like letting me shadow them for like new executions. My manager, like, I think he believes in me way more than I did at first. Like he would let me lead executions. I was like, are you sure I'm ready? He'd be like, yeah. And, you know, I just really like that environment. Like everything as a whole just really inspires me to work there and keep pursuing this, I guess, this role that I didn't even know existed until my internship. So since 2019, I didn't know about validation engineering. So I'll let Sandra speak.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I didn't know that this is what I would be doing. You know, a decade. I don't want to age myself too much. A decade ago, but you know, I knew I wanted to be in the sciences. I mean, for me, the light bulb went off when I was 7 and I saw Jurassic Park, and I was like, oh, DNA, what is that? And it's just kind of been that way ever since. And funny enough, you know, I didn't know, but reading, you know, Michael Crichton's book, Jurassic Park, they actually mentioned Genentech in the book. And here I am now working there, which I think is kind of serendipitous in a way. So no, I did not think that. I thought I was going to go to med school. I thought I was going to be a doctor. I thought I was going to, you know, be volunteering and doing Doctors Without Borders. Like that was what my thought was while I was an undergrad. But just by happenstance, going to this conference, I've been a part of NSBE since I was young. I was part of MESA. I was part of the Biotech Academy in Seattle Public Schools, where they had that in high school. So I was doing, you know, internships at Fred Hutchinson Cancer Research Center. So I was always somehow being geared this way, not necessarily realizing that I was actually going to be continuing down the path of biotechnology, but not in the sense of as a physician. And so the role that I have now, actually, as a patient-centered outcomes research scientist, didn't exist back when I was in high school, way back then. That is something that actually became more of a role or an industry in like in the early 2000s. And so it's still kind of new, which is why I think I'm glad I didn't take that path, because I'm learning and developing at the same time as the field is as well. and how that's important to, patient-centered drug development. And that is the path that we're going. The whole industry, pharma industry, medical industry is going towards that path. Rather than it being clinician driven only, it's going to be in tandem with patients. So it just happened to work out that way.
Awesome. This next question is also for Sara and Carolina again, and this is a little bit different of a question. What would you recommend to a student that's thinking about changing their career path? Maybe that's changing their major, or they've started something and they're thinking about changing their career midway. What kind of advice would you give, and what would you recommend?
I'd say do it. Go for it. There's no right or wrong answer. Like, this whole journey is about figuring out yourself. A lot of us, especially first generation, we're told that you can only be a few certain things, and that's just kind of the warpath that you're on, because that is what you've been told to do. You're either going to be a doctor, an engineer, lawyer, whatever. There's just specific things that you were told that you're going to be. So you kind of have that tunnel vision. And so sometimes what I have seen happen, and it happened to me, is you go to college, you're doing it and you're learning, but you're starting to realize, like, well, maybe this is not for me. And I know it's scary, but it's okay, because what you don't want to have happen is you make this investment in time and energy and money, and you're in a career that you're not happy about. And I've seen that happen a few times. People in the middle of their PhD, because they've just been on this path, because that's all that they've been told to do, or what they thought that they were supposed to be doing, not listening to that voice inside saying, I think this is something else out there for me, just quitting and then having to start from scratch. So if you have any inkling or any feeling of that at all, I encourage you to think about it and to explore it a little bit more. Talk to a mentor, do the undergraduate job work that Carolina mentioned as a way of testing out what this other thing could be, to confirm that that is something that is interesting to you. Or, if you're already finished with the program, consider, getting a master's in something else that you're actually interested in. So there's other ways that you could do it, but I'll let Carolina jump in.
That was really good advice. Yeah, I guess something that you should also consider if you're thinking about switching majors or trying something new. So, I mean, that definitely crossed my mind, like first year of college, like also think about, like, I was like, I am not sure if this is what I want to do. Like, this is a little bit harder, because in high school, I feel like, high school to college is different. The transition is different. I think it's everything at once. And I was just concentrating too much on like the academic path. And I was like, wow, I didn't used to have to like study so much for an exam. Like, why is it like so much harder? Like, is this really for me? But there's a lot of things that you have to consider. Like, you're not just like in different classes, you're like in a new atmosphere. You might not be living with your parents anymore. Like, you might be trying to figure out how to pay for a lot of things. So there might be a lot of factors. So I think one of the things that really helped me was to get that hands-on experience on like what you think you want to do. Definitely really helpful. That's like what honestly kept me from switching majors. Like my first year, starting my research at the research lab, I was like, wow, this is so cool. I definitely want to get all the skills to be able to continue to do this type of work. And another one was like, talk to your friends, talk to your parents, talk to a mentor, like kind of tell them what's going through your mind. They have lots of years of experience. Sometimes it helps to just talk it out. But yeah, one of the things that I definitely recommend, like highly recommend, was like, try something that you're curious about through research or like volunteering. That's a great way to do it. That way you won't have that like in the back of your mind, like, oh, what if I should have done this? Or like, maybe I would be good at this, like it's a good way to just get that over with and get that experience that you want or that you need. And figure out if that's something that you're really passionate about, and be open to new things that you might have not even thought that you were curious about, because that's how we find oftentimes a lot of things that we are passionate about. Like, for example, I did a week of civil engineering, and before college, actually, it was in high school, it was an engineering summer camp, and I hated it. I hated it so much. I was like, maybe I don't want to be an engineer. But, giving it a try, like the research that I started doing, I was like, okay, there's definitely, I like engineering. I just didn't like civil engineering. So that's a way to explore like new careers. And then you get to meet people, you get to network through these like volunteering opportunities or like research opportunities. And that's like the important part as well, right? Like take the time to talk to your mentor, talk to your peers, that's a good way to like find out about what other degrees or what other careers are out there that you probably weren't exposed to before or familiar with and you might be interested in. So definitely for sure, try to volunteer, do research in whatever you think that you might be interested in, or even if it's something new and you get the opportunity, and like I'd say like give yourself the chance to explore and see if you like it for yourself. Yeah, don't like let anyone's words like intimidate you. Like I know in engineering sometimes people are like, yeah, it's very hard, but like you go for it and experience it yourself and then tell from there, you know? Hope that's helpful.
Yeah, I love that. Experience it for yourself. Don't let anyone else tell you what something's going to be like for you. That is really, really great advice. This next question is for you, Carolina, again. But if the other panelists would like to also think about an answer, that would be awesome as well. But this question is about, did you have any role model or mentor that helped you to get to where you are in your career now, or maybe someone you didn't even think was a role model and it turned out that they actually were? Yeah.
Yeah, I have, every time that someone asks us, I have my research professor come to my head right away. I actually met him when I was in middle school, and probably doesn't know this, but I honestly I was mad at him because my mom kept signing me up for these engineering camps in the summer, and I just wanted to spend summer with my friends. And there was this professor just super excited about making solar panels out of blackberries, and I was a little mad at first, but then throughout the years, I started to like get to know STEM through him, and like, you know, kind of finding that passion for it without me really realizing it. So I really think about him because I also got to work in his lab since a freshman. I think that's a great opportunity. At first, I think I kind of took it for granted because I didn't know how hard it could be to get into research lab, or like how important or valuable this experience was as a first year student. Until later on, I started realizing how much I actually looked up to him. Because even like being a first generation kid, my parents had me like go through the whole process of buying their house. My dad was like literally like, this is how much we have, and like, yeah, you got it. And so I went to him for any kind of advice, including that, you know, like you get so close to people and you learn who to trust, and you learn to get used to like their role model style, or like their teaching style, their support style. And that's definitely one person that I feel like has always like giving me opportunities to grow. And like, he's very like not selfish. He likes to like share his knowledge, and I really enjoy that. Like, that's something that you should look for in a mentor. I feel like just someone that truly supports you and wants to be there. And I think that's definitely one of my biggest role models, just because I felt like I really had someone that I could count on, because I know my parents weren't like, they wanted to, but they didn't know how. So you definitely find someone that's knowledgeable and that you trust. Like I said, like I shared when I came back from that Cleveland State University rehabilitation internship, he got me that grant to continue doing that type of research, but at OSU. So definitely like make sure that whoever you consider your role model, you share those passions that you have, things that you want to do, so that they can help you. Otherwise, if you don't tell them, like they're not going to know what you want or like how they can help you. So for sure, role models, like they play a big influence in like your career path, I think. So definitely find one. And there's not just one, you know, you're going to have multiple throughout like your life. Even your parents will be your role model. So for sure, take the time to invest in them, get to know them, spend quality time with them. It's a mutual learning experience.
The next question is for Sandra. What do you know now that you wish you would have known when you graduated from undergrad? Yeah, anything at all. What kind of advice?
Yeah, actually, a lot of what I was thinking about was what Sara and Carolina shared earlier around, you know, what to think about as you're considering career paths. But I think a couple of things that just like I constantly think about for myself and remind myself is that like after undergrad, you're kind of like, what the heck do I do? Like there's this whole world out there, and you just spent like 4 years or 6 years or however long time like taking exams and like studying for classes, and like suddenly you have to like find your apartment and pay bills and like get a job, and that's really scary. And there's a lot of pressure, And I think as Sara and Carolina said, like a lot of pressure for some of us, like who are from immigrant families or first gen, to like find that perfect job and like do the perfect next step. And like, that's so not helpful for us. Like, that's just so not, you know, what your experience needs to be. And like, if you feel that pressure to find the next step and that has to be the perfect step or the perfect job, like it's such a disservice to your own learning and to your own experience. And I felt a lot of that pressure coming out of undergrad. And now I think about it and I'm like, I don't know. I spent 5 years in one place. I just started at another place. Like, I feel like I'm still learning, and that's okay. And like, I have like 40, 50 more years of like life still to like try new things and like find that perfect job. It doesn't have to be right off the bat. So I think about that a lot in my own kind of development and thinking kind of about careers. I really also have learned the lesson in like hard ways, but also like great ways to just trust my gut. Like, I think when you're kind of having to make huge life shifts, like, you know, figuring out what your career or the next job is going to be, it's really easy to kind of like hear all of these other people or external kind of forces saying or hinting or kind of putting pressure on a certain direction. But your gut is like such a great source of knowledge. You have so many data points just like from your own lived experiences that are captured in your gut. And so like really trusting that has been like a great life learning for me that I wish I had listened to and kind of followed when I was younger, and not, you know, kind of not paid attention to that. I really trust my gut now. And I think really feeling confident, like it's such a huge achievement to get through undergrad. Like, school is really hard. And like that in of itself is like such a huge achievement. And to me, like, I feel like I undersold that. And I kind of always like, was like, oh, I don't know. And I was like, oh, I don't know if I'm doing great. And I lost myself in a lot of ways, and I lost my voice in a lot of ways. And I think now, as I'm starting to do work that's much more passion oriented, that's leaning into my values a lot more, that's focused on the things that I really want to do and like how I want to impact the world and like impact society in my own. Coming after undergrad, I was like, I don't know, who am I? What am I doing? And it's really easy to kind of get stuck there. And I felt stuck there. So I wish somebody had said, like, you know, it's okay. Like, listen to yourself, trust your gut, don't give up your voice, say your name in Spanish accent if that's what you want to say it. You know, like those little things that really build who you are. Like, don't give up on those, even though it's really hard. It's really hard. And all of the things that we've achieved to, you know, whatever point in time that you're in are really valuable. And like, you deserve to like give yourself a pat on the back and give yourself a little bit of a break and a breather to kind of also reset and like move forward.
Yeah, that is great advice. And I really love what you said, you know, for all of us who are, you know, thinking about STEM fields, is knowing your own data and going back to yourself, because you have your own lived experiences that can help you, you know, kind of guide yourself. So that's awesome. I really, really loved that. I have other questions, but I'd like to open it up to the audience and really let everyone else have a chance to just ask some questions. So feel free to put questions in the chat or raise your hand or unmute yourself if you have any questions at all for the panelists today. If I don't see any, I'll start to ask other ones. So yeah, feel free. We'll wait a couple seconds. So while everyone's thinking about questions, I have another one here that I'm just kind of curious about is, are there any, and I'm sure there are, but how do you deal with any stressful parts of your job or in your role? How do you kind of, you know, relax and release and kind of handle any of that stress that comes at you? And that can be for any of the panelists.
Well, when we were on campus, one of the really awesome benefits was, or it still is there, they have an on-campus gym. It's actually kind of like our own little community center, if you will. Like there's like a smoothie bar and like lounge areas, and then there's like our own 24-hour fitness, if you will. So for me, if things get kind of intense, I tend to just take my lunch break time rather than getting lunch, just going to the gym and just sweating it out. And sometimes it just helps me think things through a little bit better. And by the time I'm done, grab my smoothie or whatever it is I'm trying to eat, I feel like I can handle the situation a little bit better. It gives me a chance to kind of sit back and think about what's going on and how best to address the issue. But in the COVID space, you know, it's going out for a walk, getting some fresh air, maybe going for a jog if it stopped pouring rain in Seattle. But that's pretty much how I address it.
Awesome. Yeah. How about either of the other panelists, Sandra or Carolina?
You can share a little bit. Like Sarah, sometimes if it's possible, I like to step away a little bit and salsa dance or pet my dog. Like it's like really distresses me. But then I really like to kind of set up. I'm very much of a writer. I know there's all type of tools online, but I like to write out kind of what my plan moving forward is and just kind of try to check that off the list as I go. And definitely that really helps me. I think really I'm a big list person. Like I have to kind of plan ahead what I want to do, how I want to go about it, and then just kind of go through it and yeah, leave some space and the time. The more time you spend with the less worried you'll be about it. For me at least, sometimes.
Yeah, that's really good
advice. I think I do similar things, like try to get some fresh air, especially like being cooped up all day. It's, you know, you get stuck in your own thoughts and your own oxygen, and it's just nice to get fresh air flowing. I think what I'm starting to learn now is like to not take myself too seriously. Like I think a lot of the stress for me that like I feel becomes stress that I kind of self-impose in a lot of ways, you know, beyond the like regular stress of like just getting things done and sticking to timelines and stuff like that. So just like remembering that like there's cool stuff, there's fun stuff. I can be at work and laugh. I can like send a funny GIF to my coworkers, and that's part of the job. Like that's being at work too. Not always have to be productive and like doing something. So that's how I've been like learning into balancing like work and life stress, especially because there's such a blurry line right now between work and life and like all of the different kind of areas of our life because of COVID.
Yeah. And we have a question in the chat from one of our Plus scholars, Hunter McCorkle. And the question is, and you've kind of already touched on this a little bit, but is there a good life-work balance for like travel, personal time, whatever, or is it something that gets better as you move up in the company? That's a really good, interesting question.
Yes, I think Genentech, we have this, the work hard, give back, work hard slogan for Genentech gives back. So the way that they describe it is like casual intensity. When you come to Genentech campus, it looks like an undergraduate campus. People are wearing jeans and a hoodie, or, you know, you're taking shuttles to go to different parts of the campus. It feels like you're still an undergrad, kind of, but you're still working really hard, even though we're not in suits or dressing more corporate. We do understand that things need to get done. With that being said, you know, they do want us to take care of ourselves, especially during COVID. Well, yes, work hard, play hard, exactly. Especially during COVID, they have been very, 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 very understanding about the constraints, the stress, the fact that we still have to get medicines to patients, and have been really trying to make sure that we have what we need, making sure that we're taking the vacation time, begging us to take our vacation time, because even though we're not going anywhere, like, you need the mental break. Like, we need you to take care of yourselves, please. Even providing things from a benefits perspective of like mental health access to, you know, talking to a therapist, or as a way of decompressing. And as you do move up in the company, if you work at Genentech for every 6 years that you work there, you get something called a sabbatical, where you get an additional 6 weeks vacation that you have to take all at once, and that they make you take before your next one. So I've actually had one sabbatical already, and I was able to travel the world for 6 weeks, and it was amazing. And I still had a ton of other vacation that I added onto it, and I'm actually due for my next one. I haven't taken it yet because of COVID, but they do want to make sure that we have the ability to, not only do our best at work, but also be our best selves and take care of ourselves.
Yeah. I think that we can all take with us is, be our best selves and take care of ourselves. Yeah, that sounds amazing though, Sara. Sounds really, really awesome. Tom, go ahead. I see your hand up.
So I really appreciate this panel for showing that people with so many different backgrounds and areas of expertise are part of Genentech and important to the mission, and it's not all pharmacology. But what really struck me is that, Sara, you said, the job you do now didn't even exist a few years ago. And that's probably going to be the case, as things change, there's always something new coming along. So at Genentech, is there a lot of kind of training or retraining offered through the company, or do people tend to go out and get a different kind of degree? How do people sort of stay current with the new things that,
Well, as you saw on my journey line, there's lots of little universities popping up as I continue. So yes, they do have training programs for certain areas within the Roche organization, which also includes Genentech, so depending upon where you are. They also have an education benefit, which I've taken advantage of, to going back to school and having it paid for partially through Roche Genentech. So when I was at Stanford, the management science engineering master's that I started was paid for, but I only completed the certificate because I realized that's not what I wanted to do. So when I switched for my MPH, they still allowed me to use that towards my MPH when I was at Cal. And then I went back recently during, the pandemic. I finished in June at UW through the Choice Institute, their Health Economics Outcomes Research certificate program, because that's kind of where things are going in the industry from a pharma perspective and understanding health economics a little bit more. So they paid for that as well. So you have that benefit. It's pretty, it's very generous, I think. So like if you want to continue to improve on your skills, there's lots of certification programs. They encourage us to pursue that as well, because it is a benefit that each full-time employee has, because they do know that what we knew 10 years ago is obviously going to change in this industry. So they always want us to stay up to date, and which is probably why I'm probably going to go back to school again at some point.
Ariane, go ahead. I see your hand up.
Hey, I just wanted to say thank you to all of you for sharing. Like, this was really amazing and really inspiring to hear. I was especially impacted by what Sara had to say about kind of being like a first generation college student and having that tunnel vision of like wanting to be like a physician or a lawyer or whatever. And I feel like I'm exactly in that space where I, am a first generation college student. Like, I came from a background of poverty, and I've really had that tunnel vision for a long time of like just wanting to be a doctor. And now I'm discovering that like I might be passionate about other things, but I'm having a really hard time letting that go, like that dream of being a medical doctor. And I think a lot of it maybe is like feeling not wanting to give up, or like wanting people to still be proud of me, or like proving to myself and others that like I can achieve things. Like, do you have any advice or any like perspective from your experience of like what that transition was like for you, and just making sure you are going in the right path?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I know that's a hard place to be in, and I can empathize and sympathize with you. It's scary because you've worked your whole life up until this point for that. But as Sandra said, that gut instinct, I wouldn't ignore it. For me, what helped me to determine that actually this path isn't actually what I'm supposed to be doing. And, I'm a Christian, I believe in God. And, I was reading Purpose Driven Life, this book at that time to tell me, like, to kind of help me just think about things a little bit more, like what motivates me, or what's my purpose, what am I here for? So one of the things that I did was try to get some hands-on experience, like going and doing the work. So volunteering at Harborview in Washington, in Seattle, Washington, and volunteering with at the hospital when I was in Oakland, or in the Bay Area. Even when I was doing my first rotational program, when I first started at Genentech, I was still not sure after those 2 years if I was going to stay. So I was like, maybe I'm still going to go to med school. So I was still doing all the work. And so doing those hands-on volunteering experiences and getting more clarity of the work, and just seeing how it really wasn't for me, and just trying to understand, well, what is it that I actually want to do, and how is this aligned to what I'm supposed to be doing? I figured out, like, at the core, at the bare minimum, what I want to do is help people. So if my job at the end of the day is still allowing me to help people get better and live better lives, have access to healthcare, that's what was my motivating factor. It wasn't necessarily to be a doctor just to be a doctor. It was, how do I make sure people have equitable access to medicine? How do I make sure that I can touch as many people as possible, and helping them be able to live full lives? And how do I make sure that it's equitable across? Like, for me, the medical, in addition to, my parents saying, like, these are the things you could be, I wanted to be a doctor because I want to help people, but you don't have to just be an MD, and that's the only way that you're only able to do it. In research, I realized it's not one individual person I'm helping the masses. And to me, that is more impactful than just helping someone on an individual basis. I'm still bringing, those tenets with me in the work that I do and why I'm doing it, which is making me, stay at Genentech and doing the work that I'm doing. And they're doing things at this company that is just amazing. Just some of the molecules that we have, the work that we're doing to reach out to patients. So for me, it helped with that decision, knowing that I am still doing the tenet of what it is that was motivating me to be a doctor in the first place, which is helping patients. So that's kind of how I was able to realize it. The other part was the financial piece, realizing how much debt I would be going to med school, and coming out with all that debt and how that would impact me financially was also something that made me take pause in deciding whether or not it was the right choice for me. And realizing you could make just as much as a physician if you decided to become a scientist. You don't necessarily have to be an MD to do that. You can go and get your PharmD, a pharmacy degree. You could go and get a PhD, or you can get your master's in public health or a DRPH. So there's other ways that you can still achieve that same level of, or that tier of seniority without having to just be an MD. But again, it's a path, it's a decision that only you can make, but it is not easy, and I completely understand. Also, talking to someone who's currently in med school, or someone who was in med school and then left and made a different career path, talking to other people who have been in a similar situation and have gone through it is also helpful. I have a cousin actually who did the whole thing. She went all the way to med school. She's was at Stanford doing her residency, and she realized that it wasn't for her. And so I'm trying to help her now figure out, like, what she could do with the degree that she has in clinical research, because now she realizes she doesn't want to practice. So, I think it's good that you're thinking about this now and taking the time to really figure that out. There's so many things that you could still do in healthcare if healthcare is still something that you're interested in. It doesn't just have to be being an MD. I don't know if I really answered your question or if that helped at all.
You did. Thank you so much.
Okay.
That was awesome, Sarah. That is such good advice. And I know we're coming to an end, and I think we could probably sit here together and talk for a lot longer. This has been an amazing, amazing panel. I've learned so much, and I just wish that, you know, I would have been able to hear this advice when I was, you know, doing my undergrad and finishing up. Before I let everyone go, I want to introduce to the panelists, Dr. Carlos Crespo and Dr. Tom Keller. They're the PIs on our Plus program. And Carlos and Tom, you know, I think we all thank you for the effort that you all put into working with Genentech and allowing the Plus program to exist. So thank you all very much. And I don't know if you'd like to say anything, but I think we're all just really thankful.
I think the panel have talked, have done a great job. If I say anything, I'm going to screw it up. I might as well shut up.
I just want to thank Genentech, because, you know, we learned about this opportunity to apply for the funding, and it was just a perfect fit for us, because the RFP was to say we are committed to supporting you know, a diverse workforce in our profession, and we know that COVID is disproportionately affecting students of color and could really disrupt their pathway. And of course, BUILD EXITO is all about providing opportunities to those students. And so it was when we had talked about how the transition out of the program has its own set of challenges, you know, and especially in that kind of non-existent job market. And, you know, educational plans with schools shutting down and going remote and everything. I mean, it was just a chaotic time. And so it was just really thoughtful of Genentech to recognize what was happening and how that could affect students. And we're just, I mean, again, it wasn't our brilliant idea, it was Genentech's idea. And we just had, you know, a set of circumstances that fit, and it was a good match for us. So I think when you're saying things like, you know, there's real spirit in the company to be a community citizen and, you know, give back and think over the long term, like kindergarten to career, you know, that's our experience with Genentech, you know, based on our limited viewpoint, but it rings true. So thank you.
Well, thank you both, and thank you to the Genentech Foundation. Thank you to our amazing panelists. Thank you, Sara, Sandra, and Carolina, for sharing your stories with us and just all the amazing advice that I know I will take with me, and I know all of our scholars will also take with them. This has been a great experience. So thank you to everyone, and I hope everyone has a great weekend, and take care of yourself. Take care of yourself. Have some me time. So yeah, thank you, everyone.
Have a great weekend. And thank you, Shandee, for moderating. This is great.
Yeah, no, my pleasure. My pleasure.